penetration to the posterior aspect of the pancreas. The important thing for a woman to understand that be fixed by just putting a stent or a small elastic tube into it with a dilution to it that prevents formation of further clots. That can be curative for you, or can also prevent further symptoms from a coronary artery disease. But at the time when you finish your surgery and everything is done, probably the procedure only takes less than an hour. Afterwards, to prevent bleeding, pressure is applied to the area, and you may be asked to remain in hospital whilst you put on Plavix, another blood thinning medication. But when you come home from the hospitals, you've got to make sure you check with your primary care physician and make sure you continue your high blood pressure medicine, your other diabetic medicines, the blood thinners as well, and make sure you're trying to live and to have the best possible coronary arteries you possibly can by addressing the problems that caused it in the first place, which is your high cholesterol, your uncontrolled diabetes, and our hypertension actually not being controlled. Here again, the best method of cure is to try and prevent these diseases from coming on. Having practiced in Richmond Hill for over 18 years, I feel very comfortable in discussing the issues that are considered non-medical, but equally as important as the medical issues in our patient population. I do not distance myself from saying these are my concerns, because if they're the concerns of my patients who've supported my practice for all these years, then I think their concerns are my concerns. And when I address this issue, it's from a background of hearing information from people who I respect tremendously, not only as patients, but also as friends, and a lot of them go sometimes even more than family for me at some points in time. And a lot of time I'm privy to information that is considered confidential, but if I find it's happening more often than an isolated incident, I will address it as an issue. And one of these issues that I'm faced with, and I'm getting repeatedly informed from different sets of patients, is the interaction of an estranged relationship with a man and a wife. And there's no particular man or wife here, but it's a common situation that I see in my practice, especially from the patients that I see. The husband comes in and he says that my situation at home is very uncomfortable. I'm being accused of being with someone else. My wife doesn't have anything to do with me. It first starts off with me not being welcome at home. My food is either put on, it used to be a 3-course meal that was on the table, and it would be said sometimes jokingly, but it's sometimes there's an element of truth about it. Now I'm getting not a 1-course meal. Now my food is in the microwave, then it's in the refrigerator, and eventually I don't get any food at all. It's the start of what is considered the loss of respect with a man and a wife. Now I don't feel the need to be home. My bedroom is now relegated to the living room, and my wife comes home at different hours, and I do not have any relationships with her. And basically I've started to drink a little bit more. I've started to stay out a little bit more, and I've also started to rekindle those relationships or those interests that I had in the past. All of this doesn't help to repair a situation before you address it. If you address the relationship as being estranged and you cannot live together any longer, and you've made a decision, a collective decision along with the rest of your family, especially if the children involved, as well as the religious leaders that you respect their opinion, before you embark on a passage or chain reaction that is going to result in much more losses, both financially and socially, and for those who matter most, your kids, are going to be so estranged and poisoned and so destroyed by both parents taking an approach. So that's a man's side of the story. My wife ignores me, she doesn't cook for me, she's going out with other people, and she's accusing me. That's his side of the story. Now her side of the story is, doctor, my husband is becoming increasingly mean. He doesn't pay attention to me anymore. He doesn't give me any money anymore. Now he doesn't pay attention to the kids anymore. He doesn't come home on time anymore. And I think he's seeing someone else. Some of this might be true. Some of it might be anecdotal. Some of it might be suspicion. Regardless of whatever it is, it was never addressed as an issue with man and wife. It is now being addressed to the physician, but they've already started to act on this without seeking any sort of advice from religious leaders, etc., or people that they value. Now the kids are being brought into this picture because man and wife are not together. Man and wife are having their own separate lives. The kids are caught in the middle where no attention is being paid to them. They're in an environment that's becoming increasingly hostile to both, as parents try to exert their own positions on it. And basically the kids are not being held as a family unit. When this happens, they have their own way with things. They can stay out late in school. No one knows what their timetable is. They can indulge in habits. They can have different friends. They can meet in basements and have fun. They can have all sorts of activities that we started to accept as being much more common in Richmond Hill society than it has been before. Now the parents now decide that I'm going to be living in the basement and you'll be living in the first floor. And basically we're living separate lives. You can come in when you want and I will come in when I want. Now, before even addressing any issues, this whole situation has catapulted in a gross separation of man and wife, and the children are now torn apart. Now, the children will have to take sides as to which parent they'll support. And a lot of times, they will probably be split half and half, or more often than not, it happens to be the mother. The father will then walk away from this situation, abandoning his family. That's the situation that I've seen. Or force his wife to leave the house because of spousal abuse. Now, we're much more concerned about this because now with spousal abuse, it is not acceptable. No activity, there's nothing more unacceptable than verbal and physical abuse. Verbal abuse tends to be acceptable in our society to express a point. Physical abuse, absolutely not. And the men sometimes are aware of what the consequence could be for their actions, and the women sometimes force them into a position. But for those who are not aware, the minute you physically abuse anyone, they can call the cops, and you can actually be put in jail. And more commonly than not, in our society, the men are handcuffed and put behind bars, and a restraining order is then issued against the man. Now you cannot no longer come to your own house. You had no right in the first place to physically abuse anyone, much as your wife. And now you're behind bars. She will have to come and bail you. You appear before the court, and no amount of explanation to the judge will result in anything more than a simple fact that you will be asked to have a restraining order. And now, if she is the person who wants to work a marriage out, maybe there's still a chance with a restraining order and with you being on probation that it could be remedied. But that's if you want it to work. If you don't want it to work, here's the stream of events that I commonly see. You're now taken before the judge. You're given a restraining order. You're asked to leave the matrimonial home. You have to find a place for you to go and live. In a case that I know very well, the woman even refinanced the house, took all the money out of the house, took all the money out of the bank accounts, and now the man is living in a basement. The monies for the house, which they both bought together, in fact, he was the one who came to the United States in the first place, and then sponsored her to come and live with him. Now she's moved with the money, has transferred in her parents' name. But all of this, what it does, the intricacies and the details of it need not concern us. What is happening is we are addressing issues in an American society in a very un-American way. Meaning, if you encounter a problem within your family and you know it is fixable, try and fixable through the normal routes, which is through advice, through counseling, through seeking the methods that are acceptable in this society. Do not revert to methods that are unacceptable, like physical abuse, verbal abuse, mental torture. They're not acceptable. If you know you cannot work things together, you have the most vital attributes of your life, which are your kids. And then next to that, you have your financial attributes. Decide how you're going to be able to live with those apart. Try and protect those you're responsible for, and address this in the very American way, which is before you get to your attorney, you and your wife, who you spent years with, and the children you trust and you will care for the rest of your life, understand that the respect for both parents is equal. The respect for the mutual respect for parents for children and children for parents should continue even in a broken home. But no parent should be allowed to ask the kids to disrespect the other based on a simple fact because they're not in the same environment. So those issues have to be addressed foremost. The relationships have to continue, albeit the one as man and wife no longer, but the respect and the responsibilities will continue, and address them in an American way. Very fair, very straightforward, and address it as a dollars and cents issue for the material things. For the things that matter most, your kids, address them as equally as important or even more important, that the mindset of these young ones are protected in a sense that they respect both parents. They have a responsibility to report to both parents, and both parents are involved in their education, in their religious upbringing, in making sure that they share responsibilities for those kids. Because at the end of the day, those are your most valuable assets. The money will go, the children will not. So it's up for us at this stage in life, as we go through our difficulties in adjusting in this American society, that we adopt the values of our society, the positive values, ignore some of the negative values we brought from home, address the society, the values in our society, and respect the rule of law at all times as we move our separate ways, even if we part as being spouses to each other. Our responsibility to our kids and the rest of society still remains.